Welcome to Shared Insights, the podcast from BA Insight. My name is Pete Wright, and I'm joined today by Michal Pisarek, founder and director of product at Bonzai Intranet for SharePoint and Office 365. Michal, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Pete. Thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to it.
For those who aren't in the know, tell us a little bit about Bonzai Intranet and the work you do there.
Yeah, so it's an interesting story, I think, and it's a story I think that many organizations, particularly consulting companies, are going through. So we started off as a consulting company around about 5 years ago, doing a lot of custom work and a lot of very kind of long custom development intranet projects for customers on obviously the SharePoint and the Office 365 platform. Throughout that process, we really found that there was a lot of commonalities between clients, regardless of vertical, regardless of size, regardless of industry. And what we did around 3.5 years ago was kind of package all of that up together. So Bonzai Intranet is what we call an intranet platform. It's a range of capabilities and tools, leveraging all of the great stuff that Microsoft offers, both from the SharePoint side and an Office 365 side, but combined together with a lot of the custom IP that we have created in terms of user experience and leveraging search, which really allows you to create, an award-winning intranet and digital workplace very quickly and very, very easily. And in addition to that, we know through our experience that a great intranet is not just the technology, it's everything else that goes alongside with it. So whether that's correct information architecture or governance or proper change management. So one of the things that we also offer as part of our Bonzai kind of offering is what we call the Bonzai delivery framework. And that takes customers through really a best practice-based approach to delivering an intranet or a digital workplace solution that ultimately is going to provide your organization some really tangible value.
Outstanding. All right. So you have had your fingers in many different components of intranets for some time now. Let's take a step back. The big question we eventually want to get to in this conversation is around intelligence and why it's so important to integrate intelligence into our intranets. But to set a foundation for that conversation, what's wrong with today's intranets?
Well, it's an interesting kind of question, because I think when we started doing intranet work a while ago, we thought that a lot of organizations were extremely unique in the challenges that they're experiencing. That some organizations, the challenges were more on the technical side in terms of the technology that they were using. Some organizations, the challenge was more on the business side. So to do with things like content governance and making sure that, something as simple as not having the same news story up on your intranet for 3 to 6 months. But what we found working with a lot of customers is really there's a number of things that we're seeing most organizations struggle with. The first one, I think, is really from a technology standpoint. So we have a lot of organizations that simply have intranets on very, very old technologies. And these aren't small companies. We work with a lot of Fortune 500 companies here. One of the clients that we had, their intranet was literally 12 years old, built on Lotus Notes, and it was powering an organization that had close to 15,000 people in. So
that's actually a great point. And I don't mean to interrupt you, but I wonder if you could we could perseverate on that just a little bit. Why is it that the Lotus Notes system has not been embellished or replaced, or what are the things going on in the company that have kept them from moving forward?
Yeah, we see this time and time again, and I think the problem with most organizations with any intranet project is typically you have a small group of users, for instance, the intranet managers or the IT team, or typically those users or those kind of business units involved in an intranet, typically corporate communications, marketing, HR. They're the ones that really understand the value that an intranet can provide, and it can be transformative. But then they have to actually be able to communicate that out to the rest of the organization to pitch the intranet as essentially a business critical tool. And for a lot of companies that have these intranets on really old platforms, typically the process they went down 10 years ago, 5 years ago, they created an intranet. They spent a ton of money doing custom development, but maybe they didn't look at the business side, or maybe the project wasn't executed correctly. And what happens is, people use the intranet for 6 months because it's new, it's fancy. And then something called intranet rot sets in. And that rot, Pete, as you probably can understand, can be a number of different things. things. But what it causes is it causes people to lose trust in their intranet. Then funding is really difficult to get. And then what happens is people go and create all of these other systems. So for a lot of the organizations that we work with, it really is trying to get them to understand, the value of what an intranet can provide. And the value can be immense and it can be huge, but you have to pitch it in such a way that you can actually quantify that. And you can quantify that in qualitative metrics in terms of stories and experiences that people have. You can also have it in more kind of quantified metrics in terms of site visits and so forth. But for a lot of organizations, we see it's the same story. We have this intranet, no one uses it. It's out of date. We think there's incredible value there, but can you help us as an organization, show the possibilities that a great intranet or a digital workplace can provide? And that's for a lot of our customers. They come to us even before they kind of engage with us. We help them through that process, helping them craft a business case and craft a story of how a great intranet can bring people together, can encourage communication, collaboration, finding content, search, all of those.
Right.
All of those types of use cases.
Get them over that sort of deflationary spiral of it's out of date, so no one uses it, but no one uses it because it's out of date. How do you get them over the political, the cultural, issues that also exacerbate the technological issues and lead to, I think, the next point that around the sort of freshness of the information on it.
Exactly. And that's a huge thing. I mean, Pete, as you've seen, technology is getting better and better, right? And whether that's on the Microsoft side or any of the other technologies that we use, but still it really comes down for a lot of organizations to really simple things, basic content management. Right? Making sure that if you upload a document that you at least try to apply some sort of metadata or some sort of taxonomy to that so content can be found. With our particular kind of product, we use metadata a lot. But we're also cognizant that we can't expect an end user to upload, let's say, a policy and attach 27 pieces of metadata to that. It's just not going to happen, right? But we can have it in such a way that we keep it as simple as possible for organizations. So even that ability to upload, let's say, a document, tag it as a policy, tag it as, let's say, the department owner, and tag an expiration date to that, then we can work a lot of that magic around that. So I think basic content management is one thing. I think also you have to understand that, traditionally intranet owners, they're not technical people. They typically come from a communications-based background or a marketing-based background or a human resources-based background also. So making that process as simple and as easy as possible. They shouldn't have to go to their IT team to get a news article written. Okay, that type of bottleneck is just not going to happen. And ultimately, it annoys both, the people trying to write that content and annoys the IT team also. So I think giving an organization that ability to self-manage that content is super, super important. And then probably the final thing is really about vision. Like, what do you want your intranet to do? Because your intranet can do a lot of different things. And when we work with our customers, we kind of have a rule here at Bonzai is that if you're doing an intranet for an organization, you need to A, include your end users, because ultimately that's who you're building it for. But B, also your intranet team should have a cross-section of representatives from within the organization. There's no point IT doing their intranet without asking anyone, because no one in any organization wants, an IT pushed out system to them. So when we work with our clients, particularly larger organizations, we make sure that there's a very good cross-representation of both content and people that are part of that intranet project team. And like I said, typically that's corporate communications for all the news, events, type of corporate comms, type of content. Definitely HR for all of the, the content relating to me as an employee, benefits, policies, procedures, any other business units depending on industry also. And then what we also bring to the table is our experience. So we know that people want to be able to find other users within their organizations quickly and easily. We know that some of the content that resonates most on the intranet might not necessarily be corporate news stories, but might be news stories about people that work within the organization or links to particular apps also. So that's, I think, a lot of the reasons that we're seeing intranets, not really providing the value that they could.
Well, let's talk a little bit about adoption then. There will be a time some years from now, and this I say reflecting on my my first intranet. There will be a time some years from now when we'll be able to look back on today and recognize that we were, in fact, in the dark ages. But where are we on that adoption curve, and why is it important for us to really think about evolving intranets to, I should say, start taking advantage of that future today? Personalization, intelligence. Why is it so important that we invest consistently?
I think there's a couple of reasons. I mean, I think in terms of the personalization aspect, I think that's something that we can do now. And it's something that we have within Bonzai all throughout the platform also. And the reason for that is, particularly if you're a larger organization, you want to give people that experience of being able to personalize what they're interested in seeing. And especially if an organization works across multiple different countries, for instance, there's no point someone landing on an intranet homepage and seeing content or stories or links that aren't kind of necessarily relevant to them. So I think personalization is definitely something that we're doing a lot with our customers. So that ability, for instance, that I can land on my intranet, I can pick a particular region. So let's say I'm picking, the US region versus the Europe region. And then all of a sudden, I'm getting content that's specific to me. I'm getting forms, policies, procedures that are specific to me. I'm getting news articles that are specific to me also. But taking that a step further, you can apply that really to different types of content and different types of facets about a particular user. So a big thing for a lot of our clients is that ability to maybe target content based on a user's job title, for instance. So being able to target, let's say, things like training events based on job title, or being able to target, industry announcements based on that job title also. So I think in terms of personalization, it's something that is really necessary now, because otherwise, if everyone can see every piece of content, you're kind of stuck in the same position that you are now, that, a user lands on like a file share or a particular SharePoint site, for instance, and they have all of this content and it could be tagged, but they're not really getting the right information at the right time. So from that personalization aspect, like I said, it's something that we have within Bonzai. It's something that a lot of other product have also. And I think really users are used to being able to personalize their experience because they do that through other tools, right? They do that through whether it's social tools like Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn, or kind of more business tools, like I said, like LinkedIn or other aspects also.
Sure. They bring that expectation of flexibility and personalization from home. They bring that to work.
Exactly. And I think what's fascinating to me is, especially now with the advent of, the technology that's happened in the commercial side over the last 5 to 10 years. I mean, you've seen some of these systems, Pete, that people use. I mean, from the business side, I mean, they're shocking. User experience is terrible. It doesn't make any sense. But still, it seems like the business world is, a fair few, I think, years behind in terms of really understanding what users need to create a great experience. And a lot of that is around, that user experience side. We want our clients, when they log on to their intranet, they don't have to know it's SharePoint. They don't have to care. They just know it's a place where they start their day. They can get all the information that they need. So a big driver that, we're seeing on a lot of these business tools, and you can see Microsoft doing that in Office 365 also, is really around that user experience side, right? People want to use tools that make sense to them. And for me, it's pretty shocking that I can go and download a free app on my iOS device where I can instantly understand what it is and how it works. But if I go to work, I have to deal with some arcane system that was developed 10 years ago. And, it's probably like an Access database running under someone's desk, which literally runs the entire company. And we've seen that time and time again as well. So in my mind, that user experience key, I think is also really, really vital to making sure that, you get some adoption and some great adoption as well with your intranet.
I don't mean to sidetrack us too much here, but how well do you think these companies are doing at actually addressing the cultural baggage, that expectation of tools working the way users expect them to work at work? And I'm thinking specifically about Microsoft, and Teams, but Facebook Workplace and Slack and these companies that where people are using these tools at home. They use Facebook at home, they have come to a certain experience, and here's Facebook saying, you know what, we think we have a solution that'll allow you to bring that expectation back to work so you can have the Facebook experience in a safe place. Do you think, how well do you think Microsoft is doing at actually accommodating that sort of expectation?
I think they're definitely doing a lot better than they were a few years ago. I mean, if you look at some of the changes that they've made in Office 365, particularly around a lot of the SharePoint work that they're doing, these modern team sites, groups, you can tell that there's a lot of emphasis placed on that user experience. And I think that's really, really important. I think if we want to get adoption of any system, firstly, it has to be useful. And I think that's something that we try to drill into a lot of our clients also, particularly when we're having discussions around like intranet homepages, for instance. And this is a pretty fascinating one where, most of the time, most intranet homepages are very heavy on the corporate communications type of content. And we know that's important, but we also know through research and anecdotally that users want other types of things. So maybe they want the ability to access other systems or tools or something as simple as being able to see how many days of holidays they have left, right? And they want that integrated in onto their intranet homepage also. Mm-hmm. So that ability, I think, to integrate some of these other tools in there from a user experience side is really, really important. I definitely think that Microsoft is going the right way in making sure that UX is a key thing. And I think the reason for that is if you just look at some of the disruption that's happened within the industry, and Slack's a perfect example. Super simple tool, right? Very, very slick, very, very easy to use from that user experience side, obviously solved the problem that a lot of organizations had, and it's gone through the roof. So I think, like I said, from Microsoft's side, I really like the direction that they're going, both from a user experience side and some of the functionality side. I'm not sure if you're hearing this, Pete, but one thing that we're hearing from a lot of our customers, though, particularly on Office 365, is that overlap of tool sets that do the same thing is becoming a real issue. That you've got multiple tools that do the same thing, and that becomes, I think, problematic. Now, you can get around that with some strategy work and so forth, but still, I don't think Office 365 is as easy to use as it could be. It's not one tool for one job, and I can basically come in and start to use all of these tools without any training. But I think over time, hopefully, Microsoft is going to go down that direction.
Well, isn't that interesting, too? It causes sort of a corollary challenge, which is HRIT kind of training bloat. Like you have to spend more time training your users to do things the way you need to be done for consistency, et cetera. I think that's an interesting outcome. The issue with Slack is an interesting one, too, because I think it demonstrates a thing that Microsoft is learning, rapidly, that it's not just keeping up with the information they need. It's not just keeping up with, documents that are submitted to the CMS. It's keeping up with people as assets. I need to connect not just to what someone's creating, but I need to connect with that person quickly and easily. And I think you can see so much of Microsoft trying to actually surface more of expertise, human expertise in their assets. What are you hearing from customers along those lines? What sort of trends are you seeing that your customers are asking for in that light? Can you walk us through kind of your greatest hits?
Yeah, definitely. I think you bring up a great point around being able to find people. And I think that's really a byproduct of a lot of the knowledge. I think a lot of the knowledge that most organizations have, it's not codified, right? So it's not in a document, it's not in a policy or in a procedure, but it's more tacit. It's in people's heads. So there's two ways to get around that problem. One way would be, well, let's codify all of this stuff, but that can be difficult, right? Because once again, you have to, people have to go and, have like a knowledge base or something. Or the other way is, how do we help connect people together much, much easier? And, it's one thing searching for people by first name or last name or phone number or department, for instance. But what we try to do with Bonzai is try to take it a step further, because we know that most of the time, through our research anyway, when you're doing a search for a person, there's kind of two main types of searches that people do. One of them we call a contact search. So this is, I know who I'm looking for and I need to get their contact details. So I know I need to call Pete. I don't know, Pete's phone number, but I can go and kind of, find Pete. And I can do that in multiple other tools. I can do that in Skype or Outlook or whatever else. The other one, which I think is more valuable, is around searching and finding people by other attributes. And they can be very, very different depending on the organization and the industry. So finding people by skills, expertise, past projects, degrees, designations, all of these items I think are extremely powerful. And really one of the most popular features I think on any intranet is that people search experience, that ability for me to go into an organization and maybe find someone that can help me with a particular task. Or let's say I'm working at a financial institution, for example, and I have a question about a certain type of mortgage. Imagine if I can go into my intranet, type, mortgages, and not just see content around that, but see people that are experts in that particular field. That's a huge driver for a lot of our clients. That ability, like I said, not just to find content easily, but to find people really, really easily. And typically it's not by first name, last name, phone number, the kind of, core keystone type of data. It really is around skills, expertise, past projects. The other thing we're also seeing, and this has only happened in the last couple of years, which is pretty interesting, and it plays into both people search and kind of, a culture engagement perspective, is that ability to find people by social interests. So let's say I work in a large organization and I want to start, a running club for instance. I can go and I can find people that have similar social interests to me. And it sounds like a bit of a kind of tacky example, but there's so much research coming out now that the closer that people are within an organization, the more engaged they are, it really, goes down to the bottom line also. So for a lot of the clients that we use, we do a lot of planning around kind of finding people. A lot of it is definitely around, those kind of business types of information we might be looking for them. We've also got a lot of clients that are looking for, adding some sort of social aspects. I've been able to find people that share similar interests to me, and then from there, maybe I can start a social club or something else with those people.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, leveraging that is an interesting, we live in interesting days, right? That all of a sudden, now we're looking at those assets, those aspects of people, that sort of people meta, that are actually increasing, as you say, the socialization value in the workplace. These are interesting days. What else do you see? What else are you seeing in terms of trends that you're seeing from your customers that they're asking for you to help them develop?
So people search is definitely one of them. The other one is really around corporate comms. So how do we create content that we know is going to resonate with our users, and how do we engage our users with that content also? So I think it's pretty standard now to have a lot of these social capabilities built in to your intranet. It's standard with our product. I mean, I assume other organizations are doing this as well. But, a lot of key drivers, like I said, from a lot of organizations is really around employee engagement. And employee engagement is kind of a loaded term, I think, because it's a very kind of broad set of things that you can do. But for a lot of the companies that we work with, that ability to have transparent conversations, for instance, or even capture some of the tacit knowledge that people have, that we talked about that previously. So a pretty a very large trend for us is that ability for organizations to not only create great content in terms of corporate communications, and it could be news, events. It could be global news, department news, stories about people. So we see a lot of companies leveraging something called an employee spotlight, which is about new starters and success stories, but not just allowing users or their users to look at that content, but allowing them to engage with that content. And then engagement could be through things like sharing, it could be through things like liking, and it also could be through things like commenting also. And commenting is an interesting one because it kind of touches upon what we want to talk about, Pete, which is in intelligence. One of the things that we are looking at doing in particular is, well, a lot of companies come to us and say, we wrote this news article and we've got 150 comments on it. Right. And, that's obviously a really, really good thing. We're getting a lot of engagement. People, are looking at their intranet content. But when you think about it a little bit more deeply, it might be a good thing or it might not be a good thing, because 150 of those comments could be, this is great, I agree, we should do this, or 150 of those comments could be, actually, this is a terrible idea, I hate this company, you people are idiots, for example. And no one would do that, but I'm being a little bit facetious here. But I think one of the ways that you can add intelligence is one of the things that we're definitely exploring is, well, imagine if you could look at those comments and pull out the sentiment of those particular comments. And it's something that, for instance, happens a lot out there in Twitter and happens a lot on Amazon, for instance. So there's a lot of great tools now, a lot of AI tools that allow you to take a text or take a piece of comment and mine it for not only topics that people are talking about, but sentiment around that particular comment. And then what you can do, you can add up, all of the sentiment scores for each individual comment, and then I think you can provide real intelligence to your users. And we've done that a couple of times before, and what's been fascinating is some of the things that come up, because you can extract topics out of it also. And if you start extracting topics from all of the comments or all of the information that you have on your intranet, you're really finding out what really matters to people. And also from the kind of sentiment analysis also, you start to really see not only are people engaging, but are people engaging in a positive way or a negative way also. So we are getting a lot of requests from the companies that we work with to have much more intelligent intranet analytics. It's not just, page hits and views and likes and comments and all those typical things, but they want to answer questions. For instance, for this particular news article, did people get all the way to the bottom? Or did people just click on the headline and then leave? So that ability to have some intelligence in there, to have like a heat map to see how far people actually went down the page, for instance. That ability also from an analytics perspective to answer the most simple question that I think any intranet author would want answered. When is the best time for me to publish content? And what type of content resonates the most with our users? And I think that's where we're heading. That's where a lot of these AI tools, I think, are going to provide incredible value for intranets, particularly around that analytics side, to give intranet owners, to give organizations a much more intelligent way to understand the content that resonates with their users, to understand the type of information that their users are looking for, and then obviously have that feedback loop that they can learn from that and adjust their intranet going forward.
With all this fantastic data, how does this impact intranet governance? What are you hearing from your clients there?
I think from our perspective, intranet governance is like the stepchild of any intranet project. I think it's by far the most important thing that organizations need to do. It's not particularly sexy, right? It's a bunch of people sitting in a room and saying, okay, you're responsible for this type of content. It has to be updated, and these are all of the rules. We do a lot of work with governance with our customers, and what I say to them is, listen, we can build you a really beautiful, pretty website, but in the end, if you don't have governance, in 6 months' time, you're going to have a really beautiful, really pretty, beautiful website with content that's out of date, and no one's going to use this. And the way that you can protect around that is making sure that you have governance. So things like having the correct content authoring models on your intranet, for instance. Are you going to have a centralized approach where all content goes to a central intranet team, or are you going to have more of a federated approach where maybe individual business units or departments are responsible for content also? And even something as simple, I think something that's fairly unique that we do here at Bonzai as part of our governance structure is we do something as simple as a content publishing plan. So if anyone's been through an intranet project, and Peter, you sound like you've been through a few, the homepage is really the area that kind of provides the most friction within the intranet project, because everyone thinks that their content is super important. So of course everyone wants their content on the intranet homepage because they assume that's the only page that people kind of look at. So sure. One of the ways that we get around that is we say, well, listen, for every type of content, for every piece of content or every area on your intranet homepage, as part of the governance plan, you have to ensure that you create, let's say, 5 or 10 pieces of content per week as part of the governance plan. You have to sign off on that. And that really helps that conversation, because a lot of organizations, there could be someone who's fairly outspoken and they say, yep, we need my stuff on the homepage. It's really, really important. We say, that's awesome. That's great. We're going to put it here. But if we put it here, you have to have 10 articles published a week. And they're like, well, hang on. I don't have time to do that. So I think just even basic governance, a lot of organizations struggle with. I think where we want to get to, from a governance perspective, is once again using some of this intelligence. So a really classic example is this concept of expiry dates on content. So let's say, for instance, I upload a policy, I tag it with a few pieces of metadata, but then I have an expiry date on that. Let's say that expiry date is a year after the date that was published, for instance. Wouldn't it be fantastic, Pete, instead of me as a content author having to go and troll through my content to see if anything is out of date, or worse still, being told my end users that this content is out of date. Imagine if we had a system where it could look through that content, maybe using something like search, for example, and maybe 3 months before it's basically due, it sends me an alert as the owner of that piece of content to say, hey, this is coming up for review. Make sure that you actually review that type of content also. So I think there's some really simple examples. The other thing we're also hearing for a lot of our customers, particularly around governance, is around the social aspect of things, right? So,
sure.
That ability to not necessarily, I would say, moderate comments, but that ability to at least monitor comments. So if there's anything either untoward that's said, imagine if we could kind of monitor that in real time. And once again, I think a lot of these AI tools in terms of, natural language processing and extraction also can really help. And I really see that, for a lot of the more advanced intranet platforms, I see a lot of these tools being integrated in definitely over the next couple of years.
Well, this is it's been a fantastic conversation, Michael. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me. Where would you like to send people to learn more about you and your work at Bonzai?
Yeah, so if you just look at if you do a search for Bonzai Intranet, that's Bonzai, or you can reach out to me directly as well at michael@bonzai-intranet.com. We'll be more than happy to help. We also run a series of webinars and a whole bunch of intranet stuff also. So if you're interested within this space, like I said, I think you'll find a lot of really great information there.
Outstanding. We'll put links in the show notes. Swipe over in your internet-connected podcasty device, and you'll find all the links to various resources that Bonzai has to offer. Again, Michal Pisarek, founder and director of product at Bonzai Intranet. Thanks for your time today.
Thanks so much, Pete.
And thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to this show. On behalf of Michael, I'm Pete Wright, and we'll catch you next time right here on Shared Insights, the podcast from BA Insight.